Welcome to this evening's webinar. On our team tonight we have myself, Gary McConway, Sinead Toohey and Roisin Cloge. We are delighted that you can join us this evening and hope that you benefit from your participation. It is our intention to make this as collaborative and interactive as possible. Therefore, before we begin, we would like to outline some of the key features of the webinar this evening. Questions. Please feel free to post questions under the Questions tab on the right-hand side of the screen. We are also sharing a number of key documents and resources to support tonight's webinar. These can be accessed by clicking on the Handouts button to the right of your screen and will also be available with the presentation on www.jct.ie in the Business Studies section. As we work through the specification during this evening's webinar, it would be very helpful if you had a hard copy of the specification for Business Studies to hand. In case you do not have one available to you, we are now sharing the Business Studies and our Learning Outcomes poster via the Handouts tab, which is located to the right of your screen. In the webinar this evening, we will look at how the Business Studies specification can be used to plan teaching, assessment and learning. We will explore how we unpack learning outcomes to support planning. And we will identify the resources available to support teachers on www.jct.ie. The main change for us as Business Studies teachers is that we are moving from a syllabus with a strong focus on content to a learning outcomes-based specification. The specification for Junior Cycle Business Studies focuses on improving students' understanding of the business environment and on developing skills for life, work and further study through three interconnected strands: personal finance, enterprise and our economy. Personal finance focuses on students developing a set of skills, knowledge, and values that allows them to make informed decisions to effectively and responsibly manage their financial resources. Enterprise encourages students to identify opportunities and turn them into practical and targeted activities within business and wider society through the development and application of their understanding, skills, and values. It develops students' basic understanding of the financial, marketing, and operational functions of an organization. Our economy enables students to understand the dynamic relationship between the local, national, and international economic situation. It develops students' ability to identify and understand basic economic concepts as they relate to personal finance, enterprise, and the Irish economy. While the learning outcomes associated with each strand are set out separately in this specification, this should not be taken to imply that the strands are to be studied in isolation. The students' engagement and learning are optimized by a fully integrated experience of personal finance, enterprise, and our economy. Each strand is composed of learning outcomes. So what exactly are learning outcomes? These are statements that describe what knowledge and understanding, skills and values students should be able to demonstrate after a period of learning. There are 37 learning outcomes. for all students over the 3 years of study. The specification stresses that the learning outcomes are for 3 years, and therefore the learning outcomes focused on at a point in time will not have been completed, but will continue to support the students' learning of business studies up to the end of junior cycle. The outcomes are numbered within each strand. The numbering is intended to support teacher planning in the first instance and does not imply any hierarchy of importance across the outcomes themselves. It is recommended that where possible, learning outcomes are combined to create rich learning experiences over the 3 years of junior cycle. There are 2 glossaries to support the learning outcomes. Glossary of business terms and glossary of action verbs. The terminology associated with business can often be confusing, with many words having several interpretations. The glossary of business terms is designed to clarify the terminology as used in the junior cycle business studies specification, to enable teachers and students to understand how the terms are interpreted and applied. We will look at this in practice shortly. The glossary of action verbs is designed to clarify the learning outcomes. Each action verb is described in terms of what the learner should be able to do once they have achieved the learning outcomes. This glossary will be aligned with the command words used in assessment and is a useful support for planning, teaching and learning. Over to you. If you have any questions, please send them in now. Teachers working with the specification over the past year have found it very useful to unpack the learning within the outcome under the headings of knowledge and understanding, skills, values. This helps to plan for teaching, assessment and learning using the specification and ensures that learning is grounded in the learning outcomes. So let's look at this in practice. Take learning outcome 1.2. This is the second outcome in the personal finance strand, which is on page 14 of the specification. To help us to unpack the learning outcome, it is essential to identify both the business terms and the action verbs. In this case, with the learning outcome, we are going to look at the action verbs. These are identify, classify, compare, and evaluate. We have 4 action verbs which we are going to look at in the glossary, which is on pages 25 to 27 of the specification. This helps us to clarify what the learner should be able to do once they have achieved the learning outcome. Please take a moment to find and read these action verbs in your specification. Let's take one example of these verbs. Compare. When we look at the glossary, we can see that it asks students to give an account of the similarities and/or differences between 2 or more items or situations, referring to both or all of them throughout. The fact that they are asked to refer to both similarities and differences between two or more items gives a clear direction as to what is expected. Let's take a moment to look at this verb. How could your students show they have an understanding and an ability to compare in your classroom? Looking at the outcome 1.2 and focusing on compare options available to best manage financial resources, evaluating the risks associated with each option, and making informed and responsible judgments. Here is what one teacher did with their first-year group. Students were asked to compare a current account with a savings account, pointing out what they have in common, how they differ, and give some practical examples of where both options might be available for a third-level student. We will now take you through how one group of business studies students unpacked learning outcome 1.2. Learning outcome 1.2. Students should be able to identify and classify sources of income and expenditure, compare options available to best manage resources, evaluating the risks associated with each option, and making informed and responsible judgments. We use a section template to help us to unpack the learning outcome under the following headings: knowledge and understanding, skills, and values. We start with knowledge and understanding. Regular and irregular sources of income, fixed, irregular, and discretionary expenditure, deposit and current accounts and the features of each, debit and credit cards, benefits and risks of each, where to save and invest, financial institutions, reasons for and against the different options, develop understanding of risk and your money, assessing and minimizing risk, responsible spending and use of financial resources, and monitoring bank statements. Now let us look at skills. Planning for your money, managing your money, assessing risk, informed and balanced decision making, evaluating skills, identify and classify, ability to compare options and alternatives, and of course, numeracy skills, calculating income and expenditure. Finally, we now consider the values. Awareness of risk and the importance of assessing and minimizing personal risks, making responsible judgments around personal finance resources, and the significance of planning and monitoring your income.